distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. On April 11, 1961, a remarkable trial began in Jerusalem. Adolf Eichmann, a major organizer of the mass killing of Jews, was brought to justice in Jerusalem. Prosecutor Gideon Hauser said, "When I stand before you here, judges of Israel, to lead the prosecution of Adolf Eichmann, I am not standing alone. With me are 6 million accusers, but they cannot rise to their feet and point an accusing finger toward him, who sits in the dock and cry. I accuse, for their ashes are piled up on the hills of Auschwitz and the fields of Treblinka and are strewn in the forests of Poland. Their graves are scattered through the length and breadth of Europe. Their blood cries out, but their voice is not heard. Therefore, I will be their spokesman, and in their name, I will unfold the awesome indictment." The Israeli prosecutor's opening statement instills in me a sense of duty and responsibility as I exercise the office of Justice Minister of the Jewish state. The Eichmann trial was an historic reminder of the tragedy that befell the Jewish people, but also a powerful statement of Jewish revival. Every day, Jews are reminded of Auschwitz. Every day, Jews say, "Never again." We are gathered here to mark 80 years to the enactment of the Nuremberg Law, Nazi Germany's legal framework of dehumanizing its Jewish citizens. And I can tell you that I'm here with my husband and his father, and my husband and I learned today that his grandfather learned here in this university law till 1936, and in 1936 he did a clever thing and went to Israel. His family thought he's lunatic, but he did it, and he was the only survivor of his family. And we also mark today 70 years of the Nuremberg trials, when the Allies, in the name of the international community, brought Nazi criminals to justice. The judges in the Nuremberg trial ask, how could such horror take place? The more they look into the question, the more they were puzzled. What answer would be truly plausible? Yet historians tell us that the German legal system was central to the Nazi extermination machine. Today we know more about the gradual process in which a nation under the rule of law turned its laws into a weapon against its own citizens. Let me quote the Justice Minister of the Reich, who wrote in 1942 in a letter to the President of the People's Court, "The decisive fact in criminal proceeding against Jews is their Jewishness, not their culpability." Or consider the Reichsman Secretary Office, which issued an order in 1943, "The Jews who have been charged but had already served their time shall be sent to the concentration camps in Auschwitz and Lublin for a life sentence, regardless of the original sentence." The 1961 American movie Judgment at Nuremberg tells the story of a Nazi judge that sentenced the Jewish citizen to death for playing with a German girl. The Nuremberg trials raised the question, was the capital punishment decided after the proceeding or before the trial had begun? The judge admitted that the judgment was already decided. And of course, you know, in Nuremberg trials, as we saw, there were hundreds of Nazis that were got punishment there, but in reality, millions of Germans, women and men, should have been on that trial. You gave an example of the Eisengruppen. You know, the Eisengruppen, there are thousands of people who were part of it. They murdered in shooting 1.5 million Jews, but of course, not all of them were in the trials. Indeed, 16 Nazi judges were brought to justice in Nuremberg, and 10 were convicted. None was sentenced to death. Of those who served time in prison, several were released after a short period. But very many were not held accountable at all. Indeed, it's especially infuriating that many Nazi judges and other officials became the pillar to the post-war German legal establishment. In the beginning of the 60s, 80% of the federal judges in Germany were former judges under the Nazis. The German legal establishment deterred regarding the personal culpability of those who assisted the extermination operation. The German legal system failed in the denazification process that the Allies demanded after the war. I want to praise the German Federal Ministry of Justice and Consumer Protection for the Rosenberg Project, an important official initiative to investigate how the ministry itself dealt with the Nazi past. My German colleague, Justice Minister Heiko Maas, said that fact demonstrates the failure of the German justice system. And I'm glad that my colleague Heiko Maas wants to come to Israel in order to present the results of the Rosenberg Project. Minister Maas, referring to war criminals, also said, their conviction would be important for Germany, for the survivors, and for the victims. It's never too late to bring to justice. And he is right. Justice should not be only a German duty, but a duty for all of us. We all must learn from history. The history of the justice system provides lessons that can help us prevent future horrors. We learn that even a government of law can turn into a government of monsters. And we learn that the law can be transformed into instruments of injustice. For the Nuremberg laws, were drafted not by laymen, not by even politicians, but by jurists, legal experts designed a mechanism that legitimized Jewish dehumanization. Yet, we must also remember that legal experts designed the mechanism of the Nuremberg trials. The line connecting the Nuremberg laws and the Nuremberg trials indicates that the law must be just and moral. It can lead to the abyss, but also make amendments. And history suggests a moral imperative. We must defend the integrity of democratic justice system. Cherished guests, this duty is the duty of all of us. The memory of the Holocaust obligates us to unite in condemning anti-Semitism and any kind of hatred. We must not tolerate the voice of objecting Jewish people's faith and right of self-defense. The English poet John Donne wrote, "No man is an island entire of itself." He meant that every person is more than individual, but by virtue of one's humanity, he or she is a part of a community. In his words, any man's death diminishes me because I am involved in mankind. He ends his poem with a memorable line, and therefore never send to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. Ladies and gentlemen, Donne wrote this poem more than 3 centuries before the war, but his words could express the idea that the Holocaust was not only Jewish tragedy, but a crime against humanity and the entire international community. And his poem could also express another idea, that the bell tolls for us today. We must not tolerate the voice calling to harm Jews and seeking to undermine the security of Israel. I regret that too many are yet to wake to those dangers. Indeed, it's an uncomfortable truth that anti-Semitism had not abated at the end of the war. We can witness anti-Semitism today. In fact, an anti-Semitic voice seems to get louder and stronger still. There are Holocaust deniers and others wishes to slander Israel and blame it for all the war's travels. Organizations and movements such as the boycott, divestment, and sanctions campaign, which target Israel, tap into anti-Semitic imagery and ideas. We witness anti-Semitic attacks in the heart of Europe. We hear anti-Semitic slanders in European media. We feel anti-Semitic hatred in the continent that should have learned the lesson. Has Europe really learned the lesson? Only recently have we heard parliament members in European states blame Israel for forging the stabbing incidents that were taking place in our street, in which men, women, and children were murdered. And just a few days ago, we heard Ken Livingstone, the former mayor of London, suggesting that Hitler was a Zionist. And the member of the Common then said that Israel should relocate to the United States. She apologized, but Mr. Livingstone has not retracted his comments. I called the United Kingdom Labour leader, Jeremy Corbyn, to state clearly the Labour's commitment to fighting anti-Semitism. Mr. Corbyn must clarify that anti-Semitic comments are not within legitimized political debate, and that anti-Semitic views should end a politician's career and disqualified from any further public office. Make no mistake, the Israeli government cherishes our strong and warm relationship with friendly nations. Israel is proud to be part of the international community and is committed to the success of the international institutions. But we will not compromise our sovereignty. We will maintain our might, defend our borders, and secure our citizens, Jewish and non-Jewish. And we are also committed to the defense and security of the Jewish people. Israel was founded on the premise of offering a safe haven for Jews. We shall never depend on others for survival. We will determine our own destiny. We must defend ourselves because others fail to help us. I still cannot comprehend why the Allies didn't action to stop the massacre. How come the Allies didn't bomb Auschwitz? One B-17 flight could have saved so many, even hundreds of thousands of lives. I never got an answer on that. Ours in an era of Jewish power, but some of our detractors find that motion offensive. But like other nations, Jews now exercise power. Yes, we exercise power ethically, yet resolutely. On a Holocaust memorial here in Poland, it is written, "Our tragedy shall be a warning to you." The Holocaust harbors lessons, but lessons not only for the Israelis, not only for the Jews, but for every nation and for the international community. We all must resist racism. Esteemed guests, more than 7 decades after the war had ended, what else should we learn? This is a time of transition, as number of Holocaust survivors decreases every day. But there are still many survivors with us, and we must spend resources on documenting their experience and publicizing their stories. And though many Nazis and their collaborators are dead by now, some are still alive and they should be brought to justice even in an advanced age. That's our commitment to our 6 million brothers and sisters whose care for justice shapes our nation. The prophet Isaiah said, ציון במשפט תיפדה ושביה בצדקה. The prophet promised that mourning would turn into joy. Indeed, our darkest hour turned into joy 3 years after the Shoah. We redeemed Israel and established an independent and thriving state under the rule of law. We are proud that our nation is governed by law and committed to justice. The Israeli commitment to justice is yet another expression of Jewish values. Our national life is a memorial to the 6 million who were murdered, and we are committed to their memory. I thank you all and remind you today that Am Israel Chai, the Jewish people, is alive and thriving, and thank you all for coming here. I see it's very important.